I've got two of my favorite pals here who are going to show you their collections. Welcome to the Lewis Carroll Society of North America's very special presentation, Spotlight on Collectors. This is our third in a series that stretched out over a few years, and these are always very popular, getting a peek at the very special items these copious collectors have. Now, if you want to watch our other Spotlight on Collectors, those are of course available on our YouTube channel. My name is Heather. I will be your host for today. I hope you were paying attention during that slideshow. So many of our members have amazing projects coming out, books, music, so you definitely want to go out and support them. We've got exciting events coming up here, of course. We've got a theater event in July and a scholarly event about Lewis Carroll's girls growing up as a female in Victorian England. And if you're sick of looking at my mug, you'll be very excited to hear that I have co-hosts that are going to be doing most of the heavy lifting for those two programs. Daniel Rover Singer will be helming the theater event, and Diane Wagner will be doing the one in August. So I definitely look forward to that. I just get to sit back and relax and wrangle audience questions. And lastly, Giving Day is coming up. I didn't have time to make a slide at the last minute there, but July 4th, as you all know, is a very special date. It holds an even more special meaning for us Carolians, and that is the day that we ask you to generously open those pocketbooks and Venmo accounts and PayPals and spare change under the couch to support the Lewis Carroll Society of North America. We haven't quite recovered from losing a lot of members during the pandemic. And yeah, we need the funds to keep going and bringing you all this great content, and also our published works, things like the Night Letter and our important books that we're publishing. So please keep an eye out on your email for Giving Day. And if you can, go ahead and shell out some dough, basically, is what I'm saying. All right, enough of me. Let's get started. Our first collector today, by the way, we have both Mark Burstein and Linda Cassady here. And if you've been looking at our social media posts and emails, I've made sure to change the order of who gets top billing, just like they used to do on Cagney and Lacey. Everything is completely equal here. But Mark Burstein is going to go first, showing us the Burstein collection, or highlights from it, that he houses at his home. Mark is a former president of the Lewis Carroll Society of North America. He's the editor of our Night Letter. The books that he has created, edited, or contributed to, the list is up to 25. Very impressive, and we're so glad he's here today to join us. Mark, why don't you show yourself?
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for hosting me. Okay, just to be clear, what I was going to do is a little short PowerPoint on the history of the collection. Then I'm going to walk around the room in somewhat of a spiral, more like a corkscrew than a path, as Alice said. And then hopefully have time for some a few of my favorite things, as the song goes.
Excellent.
So let's start with the little screen share, if I can figure this thing out.
Mark, I see your screen and it's lovely.
You see, yeah, that's Adriana's little rabbit hole. All right, the story of the Burstein collection began in around late 1920s, when my father, Sandor, whom many of you knew, was an infant. This is the wallpaper and a little hat box from his nursery, and I like to think it sank into his subconscious. But the way he tells it, in 1934, when he was 10, he was madly in love with his teacher, a beautiful woman named Kathleen Sherman, who was also an actress and played Alice, and I don't know how, but also the White Rabbit, in a local theatrical production. He got hooked. So we fast forward 40 years. Sandor and his wife Beth loved to travel, and Sandor thought that a local copy of Alice would be a cool souvenir from every country he visited. So he bought this one in Portugal. Decades later, I realized this was actually a Brazilian edition, but I have no intention of starting the collection over again. So the collection lived and expanded at Sandor's home in Seacliff in San Francisco for decades. And then in 1983, an article happened to appear about it in a local newspaper. And one of the readers of it called the very next day with the words, "Sandor, This is the White Rabbit, and was, yes, Kathleen Sherman herself, and they had a sweet reunion 50 years after they first met. When he moved to a smaller house, he gifted the collection to me. I was living in Mill Valley, and it took up most of the house. But in 2003, we moved to Petaluma, and the collection abided in a 2-story tower. Some of you have seen it. We had a meeting here a few years back. The first story had books by Carroll, and the second books about him. Last year, we moved to a new house where Alice has her own room, and we will see it live in 1 second. So there's a general view of the room. Of course, we have to have a Jabberwock. Starting with the front door, that's a print made by the actual print of the actual steamroller that made the print. A nice collage by Adriana. A bunch of original art. I've given a talk on that before. I won't go into great details there. This is one of my favorite recent acquisitions, which is a glove display case from one of the big department stores. This is, of course, the back. Some of the objects in it I will show later when we go into the favorites portion of the program. I'm basically, these are the English language books. These are all books by Carroll, starting with 1866, unfortunately not 1865, going through your Macmillans there. Then let's see how this works. Your early 20th century. I'll just sort of go down here. I don't have any idea what I'm doing. Early to mid 19th century. Hello, Cheshire Puss. And this is sort of the 50s and so on. Thank you for the comment there. It said so many books. There's 4,200 and something or other that I have cataloged. But as my dad says, it's a good beginning. These are some of the taller editions. Sometimes I do that. As you fellow collectors know, for an expanding collection, one often runs into trouble trying to find room for everything. These are some of the better editions, some of the newer ones. Now we get into the Nursery Alice, Carroll's poetry, Hunting of the Snark, a shelf of a few tall Alice books, a lot of snarks. More snarks, snarks. Pop-ups. These are some of the tallest books, the Dolly and some Barry Mosers and so on. And these are some of the smallest Alice books. This one actually is, for example, complete and illustrated. Hard to see. Alice's Adventures Underground. Some European languages I didn't have room elsewhere for. So these are the Asian languages. We have Japanese, a lot of Japanese. Thank you, Yoshi, for being a great correspondent. Chinese are there. Others from Asia and the Middle East. Spanish. Portuguese, German, French, and then some very tall books, regardless of language. French, Italian. Okay, that's part of it. I would like to show you the Russians. I had to separate them, not only because they're somewhere between Europe and Asia, but of course they keep encroaching on other territories and lands, so they had to be separated. These are still all my Russian collection. Some other European languages, Latin, Greek, which walk slowly. And I have, I think, a complete set of Michael Everson's Evertype publications. Why is my finger there? Okay, so that's half. Oop. Walk slowly. Okay, so those were books by Carroll. These are books about Carroll. We have biographies, bibliographies, pamphlets, diaries, letters, books about his photography. These are novels based on him and Alice. Mystery books. Basically, these are all novels with them as characters, fan fiction, as I like to call it. Little categories, cookbooks, short stories, poetry, manga. The thing about manga is most of these are just the first volume of like 40 or 50 volume sets. Erotica, comics and graphic novels, science fiction, puzzles, mathematics, and then a shelf of books, two shelves of books about his illustrators. A nice chair that Matt Demakos had made for me. Okay, 19th century, magazines and basic 19th century books, some of which belong to Carroll, some of which are related to him. Tunnel books and things like that. And of course, the annotated Alice in however many languages it's been translated into. Alice in a World of Wonderlands, naturally. Some other books that I have created. Drama. That's more illustrators. These are just kind of a shelf of very large books, Cheshire Cat Press and others. Academia. And this would be collections, just, miscellaneous collections. Onwards, this is a complete set of every Lewis Carroll publication, the British, the Japanese, of course, the Night Letter, the Australian and Canadian. They're a complete set, I like to think. Okay, so I promised you a spiral. These are just sort of random tchotchkes. My father collected a lot more tchotchkes than I do. Carol's mother, belt buckles. Oh, this I really like. When you put your posters and things and drawings in a flat file, you can't see them. If you put them on the wall, you soon run out of room, as you have seen. Oh, I forgot a very important point. I'll go back there. But this way you can actually flip through them and get them. There's everything from posters to some spectacular original art from Oleg, has now fallen on the floor. I'm sorry, I forgot to show you another corner of original art, mostly some of its posters. Yeah.
Mark, can we see some belt buckles?
That's actually coming up.
Okay, excellent. Okay, and also a reminder, go ahead and give, when you're talking about Adriana and Oleg and whoever, go ahead and give their last names too, in case everyone's not familiar with them.
Adriana Pendian.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so yeah, a few other little, how am I doing on time, by the way?
You're doing
You like
just
that one?
fine. Linda's video went way over, so you're good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's only been 15 minutes, Mark, you're fine.
Ooh, all right. Well, I hope to take 10, at least 10 more. If I'm
That
still
is,
of
you are
interest to
totally
anybody.
welcome to, yeah.
Okay. So these are just, as I say, nice little tchotchkes. I particularly like eggs. Might be a little hard to see, but they're all nice Alice eggs. Soap. Oh, I forgot to show you the Alice bathroom. Well, that'll come later. Okay, so a few of my favorite things. Well, of course, I do have the actual curtains and hat box from my dad's nursery. Thank you, Grandma. Other things I like to show people. I do believe we all know what Alice Little looks like. I don't want to say anything about reincarnation, but that's my daughter. Okay, oh, here's a nice piece. This is a poster, which is from a distance is basically the Cheshire Cat's smile. If you look up close, sorry, the lighting's bad here. Let's see if I can block that. Well, basically, you look up close, it's a nice collage of Carol, Tenniel drawings, Carol photographs, whatever. But if you stick this little thing on the Cheshire Cat's face, let's see if we can do this right. Like, no, it's over here. So why is my thumb there? Is this working or not?
It depends on what it's supposed to be doing.
What it's supposed to be doing is showing you a picture of Lewis Carroll.
Oh,
But
I see it a little bit, yeah.
Sort of,
Yeah.
sort of, kind of, maybe.
Yeah, if you
All
could
right.
keep the camera really still for a second and zoom, like get a little closer to where you see his face.
Anyway, well,
Anyway.
I'm sorry. It's really good live.
Road trip, everyone.
Road trip. Well, I am contemplating inviting you to a meeting out here sometime. Okay, so back to their little glove display. This contains, among other things, this is Lewis Carroll's own cribbage board. This is Alice Little's flutina, which is kind of harmonica, accordion. Sorry. A few other things. Let's see. I have a list here. My father saw a papier-mâché sculpture in a little shop in Carmel about 40 years ago and commissioned the woman sculptor to make a set of these, which took about 8 years. So these are one of a kind. Okay. These are not one of a kind. Okay, so two other things I particularly like to collect. One is the worst Alice covers, because this is Through the Looking Glass, which is obviously a book about cowboys and Indians. A fine Alice in Wonderland with a horribly taxidermied rabbit. I'm not exactly sure. This was a hotel giveaway, sort of a come hither Alice. This one's excuse is good because it was done tongue in cheek. My least favorite in the world are, of course, Trevor Brown's with his, let's not go into that. But another great one is what we call the sex doll Alice. Okay, so that leads us to one last thing I have, combining two of my favorite subjects, which would be Naughty Alice and erotica. For example, we'll go back to, well, couple dozen DVDs. There goes my finger again. You don't need to see them. You asked for a belt buckle. I will show you one of those. This is my favorite belt buckle from the 1960s, which has on the back, of course, a working hash pipe. Oh, you know what? Another thing I forgot to mention. I'll do that at the end, if I have time. Okay. Well, of course, there are a lot of there's some Alice erotica books. I think we went through them before. You know, hot paraphernalia. People are making stickers and tattoos. This little pipe was a Father's Day present from my son, who actually found something I didn't have. The other thing I was going to mention was comics. I forgot to mention that. As you know, or some of you know, one of my other big obsessions is comic books. So here's not sure if the light gets, but we have several hundred comic books from, the oldest one is 1907, that has Alice in it. And then I have actually a second box of comics, but these are all R and X and XXX rated, which we will not show on our YouTube channel. Is that it? That's a good start.
Hey,
Okay.
Could we check out the necessary room, actually?
The what? Oh, the bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah, of course you can. So I can turn on the light. Go. There's Alice in the shower. And we have some posters, things like that. So, I mean, it's pretty full service. You get the whole 9 yards.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions before I shut up my camera off and go back?
Nope, you are free to go. Our next presenter is Linda Cassady. She is also a former president of the Lewis Carroll Society of North America. In fact, she helmed us through the troubling times of lockdown and the pandemic, and she's the one who came up with the brilliant idea for all these online virtual programs. So we are very grateful to her for that. Linda, of course, has an amazing collection that she built with her husband, George Cassady, and a lot of it is housed at USC, and some of it's in the Cassady household as well, as you'll see later. I took a trip over there and filmed some stuff with Linda, which was very fun. Linda, if you'd like to turn on your camera and unmute and say hello to your adoring fans.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you. So I believe first you've got a desktop presentation for us, right? To give us a little history of the collection and what's going on at USC, and then we'll take a look at your home.
So this is kind of in 3 parts. One is the history of the collection at USC, and then one is my favorite things that are at USC, and then what Heather was helping me with is because I was on a Mac and could get it to work. What my favorite things are that are still in the house, and I was actually shocked at how many things are still in the house. So we're gonna.
They don't need to know that, Linda. They don't need a peek behind the curtain. I just went over to your house and we had a great night.
Yeah, a little wine. It was midnight.
It was fun. Start slideshow. There we go. Perfect.
Welcome to my tea party. We're ready to begin. Places, everyone.
So that is the introduction from one of the Student Wonderland Award pieces. So that's kind of just a fun little piece. It was a game that they did, and you actually had to move around the table. So the collection is actually called the G. Edward Cassady and Margaret Elizabeth Cassady Lewis Carroll collection, named after my husband's family, actually. And the purpose of the collection is actually to make it available publicly, to give an opportunity to use the books and to have them in a university where they were accessible. So this is where Alice lives. And at first I was feeling kind of bad because Mark's place is so glorious and huge. And this is Alice. So we have a whole building here. And Alice actually lives in this window in a room called the Horton Room. So why USC? And it's USC because George felt like he owed it to the university for creating in him an individual who was curious and interesting and confident. And so it's a payback to his feeling with the university. And as I said before, the point of it is that students use it, scholars from other universities or countries can use it, and the public has free access to it if you make an appointment. And the real goal was to develop a first-class collection and have programs that engage the students at USC and other universities. So when we talk about the Wonderland Award, there are about 22 universities in California who have submitted Alice or Lewis Carroll pieces to that particular program. So this is very similar to Mark's program in terms of how we're going to look at it. There are about 6,000 items in the collection, and the whole collection, I kind of say, is wrapped in these 4 things. There's a descriptive bibliography, which is essentially like Mark was showing. We have 28 chapters, if you will. We call them sets in a document that we're really going to work from as I show you my favorites and what's in the collection. There is a digital library that is in the big sky, and it contains stuff from every department, not just the Lewis Carroll. There are about 4,400 digitized items from the Carroll collection, and that sounds like a lot, but it doesn't go very far when you look at what a book is. So it's hard to get in the loop to be digitized. And also now there's a lot of sharing of materials. So if another university has a digital copy of something, we may not digitize it at USC. And then the final thing we're going to show, just a couple of things. Some of our meetings have included participation in watching the students' materials, looking at them, and then also the award ceremony itself. So the Wonderland Award, I'm going to start with the Wonderland Award. It's based on curiosity, discovery, and creativity. We're in our 20th year right now in terms of how long has that gone on. It's open to we would take any college student, but we don't advertise very far from Southern California, although we've had winners from Northern California. And I don't think we've had any out-of-state people. So this is what it looks like when you win. These are 3 kids. None of them were from USC. They were from Carnegie Mellon, Pacific Azusa Pacific, and Chapman. And they had been working. People ask, how long do the students work on the pieces? And this team had been together since they were 10, so they had been working on their piece essentially 9 years. They stayed with Carroll and submitted a book of music. They submitted 24 songs, the script for a play. It was the most amazing submission that we've ever had. In fact, we gave a special prize. It's called Charles Dodgson Prize. We've only given it once. It's $10,000 to help them proceed in their line of work, and hopefully they were going to stick with Lewis Carroll. They did do another show for us at one of our meetings, and they are still together working and producing plays. And then this is called Wonderland Unbound. It's a program that the university funded through Vision and Voices, which is to engage students and let them know, kind of introduce them or provide information about different kinds of authors or people. Move it over here so we can get past some of the stuff. So that piece was where the animation program was approached and asked if they were interested in using the Lewis Carroll Society, the Lewis Carroll collection in their classroom for the semester. And so 24 students had a final project, and what they had to do was visual mapping of artwork on the outside of the library. So they were given a template of the library, and then they had to create activity creatures, music, animations, and it was projected against the wall. And so that particular piece went on for about 3 hours one night at the university. We're about to have another piece done through Vision Voices. So they were pieces that had grants associated with them. So we made an application and it was granted. And we're going to have one on the Magic Lantern slides in a couple of months, just before the meeting that we go to in Boston. Andrew Aidman was an animation student as well. I'm showing you the ones that are really visual because, as you know, we have a lot of books. So I'm showing a little bit of this, but we do keep this in the archive, and the students do look at them each year as they enter them the Wonderland Award. So this was one where he talks about being curious, and he has an artist statement that attends it, so you would understand where he was coming from as he made this piece called
I'm amused by little things, horseshoes and time machines. It's a toy. Light bulb hanging over my head. I hope you're never gonna go out, never go out. Blue skies hanging over my head. I hope you're never gonna go down, never go down. Halo hanging over my head. I hope you're never gonna.
So I show that because what happens is they start with a concept, and then what we want the collection to do is actually drive them back to the original source material of Alice and Dodgson. And that seems to have actually been a real successful way for students to learn more about how particularly special Lewis Carroll's history and his activities are. So this just kind of lists some of the formats that the student work comes in, but it's also a representation of what our list is. So our sets or chapters in the materials are broken down very similarly to what you've heard Mark talk about. So we have biography, bibliography, commentary, and these are kind of the top 11. In a minute, we're going to look at the rest of them. So we have 28 categories. And this is a descriptive bibliography where students can look stuff up. George actually wrote all of the content for it, and then generally what happened for the cataloging at the university is the university librarians would take that material and add it into the catalog at USC. So the other thing that we do is we take road trips and we have exhibitions. So we have at least one exhibition every year at the Wonderland Award, and there are generally other ones that go. This was actually a trip to San Diego to the fair called Mad About, and the title of that year was Mad About the Fair. It came up from one of the trustees for the library who liked the work that the Lewis Carroll Society was doing and the books in the library about Carroll. And so that was what it was. 1.5 million people went through the exhibition that we set up along with the fair. And that was one of the pictures from it. We've done talks and taken the collection to the Pasadena Book Fair, to the San Diego Library. And we just finished earlier in the year a program called Alice in Japan. We have a really large East Asian collection. And we think it's one of the larger, might be the largest one in the United States. And then this is just some of that activity. So every station at the fair had to be Alice or have some kind of Alice connection to it. So it was pretty amazing to go see it. So now I'm going to break the rest of the conversation down into three favorite areas. One is illustrators, and I have to apologize for no apostrophe in Carroll. Items that were in Carroll's library, and then some manuscript and my personal favorites, things that are at USC, and therefore you're going to have to see them from the PowerPoint. And then later you'll see the ones that are Carroll at home that Heather helped me with. So I'm going to switch over now. So this is the bibliography that we maintain. So any book that comes into the house is cataloged immediately. And then annually what happens is we select materials that we have purchased through the year and submit it for entry into the library. So for us, I'm kind of hiding myself. So I know that this is probably small over here, but we got down to, on the other slide through Carroll's letters. And then the remainder of our chapters, if you will, are Sylvia and Bruno poetry publications. So goes on, and that is how we divide it. So when we look at, let me see, I have a whole list of. So there are about 2,500 pages in the bibliography at this point. We're going to kind of go through a couple just so you can see how they're different. And we'll start with. So all of these are kind of favorites as well. This is A Hunting of the Snarks. I've talked about this on a couple of other meetings. So what we do is give credit to whoever wrote it, what kind of item is it, and what's the location. So there's really three locations. There's a vault where the more expensive materials stay and have to be requested only to very few people can go in the vault, or it could be in the Important Rare Book Room or another location in the Doheny Library. The book, not these numbers, Lovett's, WMGC, and the old WM tell you who else has the book or has written about the book, or there's a reference that you'll find that would be helpful if you're looking for a description or to identify that book. It's more difficult than you imagine to identify, is this the same book that Mark Burstein has that I have, because they all have the same title. The other thing that we do is we either make a copy of the title page or write what the title page looks, because again, the title page is commonly used to determine the edition or volume of that piece. And collation is about how the book was published and laid out, how the pages were cut. And then there's a description for each of the books. And the fun part about this one is this is one of the only illustrations that are known that Carroll did outside of his Alice ones, and certainly the only one in a snark. And then later you'll see that there's some pencil marking. If I can't make it bigger because my thing is up. There's writing on the bottom where Carroll was telling Holiday how to draw, and this was the beaver that Carroll wanted, and it kind of irritated Holiday, so he was a little snippy in his response, said that, you know, it's a really serious story, and so he didn't think that Carroll's drawing was appropriate. So they're really kind of funny. And let's go to another one that's different. 14, 15. So each of the chapters are laid out similarly, but they have different needs. So this is in the East Asian youth chapter, and what you'll see is that we put the title actually in the language. So that's, and then we have the Romanized version of it, and then the anglicized title for it as well. And so you ask how we would know what that is, and that is Amanda Kennel helped us with this. So all of the materials are listed initially on a spreadsheet, and then I put it through InDesign in a thing called Easy Catalog. Not so easy. And then Amanda would check it and write it. And also there is an East Asian librarian who would look at the titles for us so that we could get them correct, because obviously we don't speak Japanese. And this is an interesting book. It's the entire story of Alice in Wonderland written on these folds. When you open it up, it goes about 25 feet. And it's a very beautiful piece of work. Then, let's see, what else do I have here? So what I'm going to do now, so that's kind of the structure of the sets, which makes it a little easy to use. It's done in, this is a PDF, obviously. It was attached to a catalog at USC for a long period of time, and now we've just switched strictly to the catalog itself. And now we'll look at some of my favorite illustrations. So these are some Carroll illustrators that I really like. So DeLoss McGraw, you'll see later, is kind of one of my big favorites. He says his work is like a failed fifth grader, is how he feels like he draws, or people kind of think he does, but he's very curious and a real fan of Alice, as you'll see. And then you'll see this twice. This is what's at USC, but we also have some additional Mary Blair pieces. She was a concept artist for Disney, and her pieces are very soft and lovely. And also, we never thought we would be able to have one because they really have increased in price. So they're outside our range right now, but they're very sweet drawings. The next art one, sorry, so that's DeLoss McGraw, more of his Humpties. That's him. And then this is one of my favorite. It's a Russian piece. There are two in the world. They're hand calligraphy. I found it at a Lewis Carroll Society meeting in Seattle. Fortunately, I beat Angela Carpenter to it just by steps. So part of the collection is about, or collecting is about the chase, you know, looking for how you want to structure your particular collection, and then finding things that are really rare. So this is one of the really rare things, and I'll show you some of the additional pictures. From the side, there's nothing on the spine actually that gave me a clue that there was anything interesting in the book. It was just in a stall at the book fair. But it's really a very stunning leather piece, leather bound piece. For several years, I wrote to the artist, and then and he used to send me some of his new artwork, which is very different in style than this one. But so there's two copies of this, and I think he was trying to do through the looking glass as well. But this was a snot piece. Let's see. And then Alicia Scavino, this is a beautiful book. Actually, it's not a book, they're folio pages. There are 25 of these, I believe, that she did. She died, unfortunately, before she finished the last two chapters. So it's a very dark book in many respects, but it's stunningly beautiful, and the artwork is really phenomenal. I think that's all that I'm going to do in this for some of my favorite drawings. Now we're going to look at things that were in Carol's library.
And just Linda, you should probably wrap this part up fairly soon because the video is pretty long as well. We don't want Mark to feel like he was slighted.
No, I wouldn't slight Mark. So there's two things in this. So this is a mirror, a distorting mirror that was in Carol's living area. And so we have very good documentation on the provenance of it. And so we find that to be a really special piece. The other thing that we collect is a lot of his mathematical pamphlets. And this one is it's written by him and then annotated. So most of the ones that we have specific annotations. This is a set of the doublets where he had changed it and annotated it. Let me do one more that's kind of fun. Okay. Oops. Oh, sorry. Okay, well, I'll end it there. So we have another piece that's by Aldous Huxley, where he was actually signing on to write part of the Disney movie. And it's a card that he talks about how fun that might be. And it's interesting. So things that we look for are breadth of the collection so that any student could use it, would use it. And it kind of flows by things that faculty have asked us for, or the East Asia collection has asked for support, and then we look for materials in that area. So I'll stop there and we'll look at what's at home.
Great. And do you want to hit the stop share button if you would? My gosh, Linda, it seems like buying the stuff is the easy part. This cataloging must take so much work.
Our rule is that if it's not cataloged, it doesn't exist.
That's good. Keeps you honest. Excellent.
Well, you can't show that you have it and no one knows that you have it. So if you're trying to be public, it doesn't have value if someone can't use it or find it.
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
it has value, it's just. Okay.
All right. So why don't you, thank you so much. And we'll bring you and Mark back later for a joint Q&A. I am now going to show the video that we shot at Linda's place. The cameraman was a little shaky at first, the cameraman being me. I apologize for that, but it does settle down, so don't worry, it's not. And I did put subtitles on it because, like, for instance, we were in the kitchen and the refrigerator was a little loud at one point and things like that. So, but we had a good time. I hope you all enjoyed as well. And Linda, if you want to mute your microphone and turn off your camera, and I will get the video going. Everyone, it'll just take a moment. Here we are, folks. You are getting a sneak peek of the Cassady collection in the actual Cassady home. Don't tell anyone, but that stuff over there on that shelf is supposed to be at USC. Let's see. Here's Linda herself. And what are we going to take a look at here?
So we're looking at a lot of art and objects. So the first piece is music. I'm interested in how one interprets the music for the pieces that are played. So there's a theme, which is the walrus and the carpenter. This one's called Noisy Oysters, a one-step, and it was by the Weston Company. And it was reviewed by the Musical Opinion and Music Trade Review. And it said some inspiring dance numbers are to be found in the present pack of their materials. Quote, another of life's comedies, well enacted as Jack Derrick's one-step Noisy Oysters.
And what's that? The price is two what, I wonder?
Well, it's English, so must be
2 pence? 2
2
pounds?
pence or 2 pounds. The other thing that's really interesting is to actually look at the back of this, because you can find out a little bit about the date and the time. I don't know if that's pounds.
Nice.
But that's how you know who was the publisher and what else was being played or popular at the time.
That was what was on the hit parade.
It was on the hit parade, not hip parade.
Both, really.
Okay.
Lovely.
Okay. The next walrus and the carpenter is by Fernando Vincenti, and I think he's Spanish. I think he's from Madrid. He did it Through the Looking Glass. I can't find an Alice book, but I think they're so beautiful and crisp and kind of sweet at the same time. So it's one of my favorite pieces. He also has pieces for sale, obviously.
I love that you have this, because this is actually one of my favorite Alice illustrations of all time. I posted it on the Lewis Carroll Society of North America Facebook page. It said weekend plans, and someone immediately said Stan and Ollie. And I gotta say, that didn't even occur to me,
Oh, yeah.
but it sure does look like them,
does.
doesn't it?
I like it. I love it.
Well, these are very special. Magic lantern slides are a favorite of mine.
Yeah, on this one you can see who made these. So many people would make Alice slides, actually. So this was H. Debutante, and you'll see that there's a number. So there were at least 38 slides, of which I have 8. We have several sets of these and are making quite an exhibition that will occur in October, using a woman who is billed as a magic lanternist, an animator, and a filmmaker. Her name is Melissa Ferrari, and she will stage a theatrical performance inspired by the Phantasmagoria, which is a 19th century visual technique featuring fantastical and dreamlike imagery that shaped early movies, animation, and entertainment. And she'll be working with our own Fran Colt to do that. So they're really kind of quite interesting and beautiful, the way that the positive and negative pieces on it gather to make just very deep color.
And that's going to be a very busy week for Southern California Carolians, because we've all got to attend this Magic Lantern exhibition and performance and then hop on a plane to Boston.
Yeah,
and
the very next day.
the very next day.
Yeah.
And go to the fall conference of the Lewis Carroll Society of North America.
Yes, that is true. Next, we're going to look at a DeLoss McGraw piece. That's a Walrus and the Carpenter. He has not done a Through the Looking Glass piece, so this is kind of a very interesting piece to have. And I wondered why I like his work so much, and so he kind of explains it in a couple of statements. He says, as a poem, so is a picture. And he felt like he painted like a failed fifth grader, is how people kind of referred to his style. He also said, a poem has one kind of voice, but in the hands of the artist, it takes on another. Call it another reading of the poem, that when an artist studies a work, then picks up a brush and dabs that brush into color, it becomes something else. And then he said, what Carroll and Tennille created cannot be improved upon. However, it can be made accessible to new audience. And I think that's what we're seeing in all the media that we're looking at, and why I find it interesting is to try to understand stories differently.
Now he's got an exhibit going on in Oklahoma right now, right?
The Oklahoma exhibition has ended, I believe.
Curses.
So we can't stop there on our way to Boston.
We can't make a stopover. That's too bad.
That's too bad.
All right, who are these characters over here?
These characters are from the Jacquard Public Company that was in existence from 1933 to 1970, and they are the Walrus and the Carpenter. So these are a collection of marionettes. They were used, they were made by John Carr, who lived from 1884 to 1971. And the puppets were used in the early days of British television, appearing in about 21 live BBC broadcasts in the late 1930s. He met with an enthusiastic reception and gained support, so was able to develop about 100 marionettes and do have television shows with those. So it was quite interesting, and we were thrilled to have these. We actually have a fairly large puppet and marionette section in the collection at USC. So these were fun. My favorite pieces are maybe the oysters.
Oh, their little legs are killing me. Now, how do you detangle something so precious like this?
These I think we need to have restrung. There are some marionette and puppeteers actually in Los Angeles, quite a few of them. And so I think I'll get in a question and answer and consultation with them to figure out what the best way to do, because some of not only are the strings tangled, but some of the pieces are kind of misshaped as well. Mm-hmm. So I would love to see them hanging and able to do their thing, but I think they're so charming.
Moving on, do we want to see what's hiding in here?
Yeah, we have two pieces. This is a piece that has a Walrus and a Carpenter, done by, this is a Mary Blair Alice, and these were concept colors for the 1951 movie, and so they are kind of test runs for what color might be used in the shows. And Mary Blair was a concept artist for Disney for decades, actually. And again, there's something that pulls on your heart about her images, at least on my heart. And so I particularly liked having the Walrus and the Carpenter. And just because I like Mary Blair, I brought the Mary Blair over that's with Dinah in the garden. And so she's quite expensive at this point, and so we felt we were really fortunate to be able to to find one that we would be able to keep. So she will stay on the wall. She stays on the wall down the hall, and she'll stay there for quite a while before she makes the short walk actually to USC.
Nice close up there. Let's see, anything else? Was there a snark over there?
Oh, there is a snark over here. The reason that I included this broadside is that on this hunting of the snark, a gentleman named Selman Blackett, who was the canon of Salisbury, went to Dodgson and asked if he could use the magic lanterns to do some teaching. And he got to talking and said that he had a sister that was at home, and so Carroll sent them a book with an acrostic in it and inscribed it to his sister, who was Mabel Blackett. And it's an important book in our collection. We have some that are like really simple, like Noisy Oysters, compared to one of the early copies of The Hunting of the Snark. In 40 years, there have been about 30 copies of it that have been found that are inscribed, and only one other with an acrostic. Until we published ours in the Versus book that was published by the Lewis Carroll Society, it had not been published before. So that was kind of a neat association with the magic lantern slide question.
Absolutely. Was that a keepsake at a meeting?
Yeah, I put them on the table and gave them out. I mean, I had a bunch of them. And
Yeah, I
still
think
do.
I might have one of these.
You
I have them
probably
tucked
do.
away.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Thanks to, it was a birthday present to my husband.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday,
Okay.
George.
Yeah. These are electrotypes from the original Through the Looking Glass. Through the Looking Glass. And you can see there in 1865, one is Father Williams on his head, and the other one is Had a Drinking Tea. And these are interesting because they're very early copies of the electrotype plates from the Dazil woodcuts. And they were found actually by a gentleman, Paul Searle, in a junk box at a garage sale when he was looking for glass bottles for his own collection. But they're very unique. We have an additional 16 plates that were sold at the Christie's auction a number of years ago. But these are pretty special to have. Next, what we're going to look at is a book by Charles Van Sandwyck, which is probably one of the most beautiful Alice books that has been made. And so it's vellum on the spine and on the corners. And artistically, there's a lot of color and gold and beautiful drop characters for the first character, enormous numbers of graphics. It's very colored and elaborately made. There's not a picture. Some of them are cut out actually and I guess placed by laser glue or something. It's my absolute favorite book. It will be the last book that I give to USC, which is how we add to the collection each year. So it's hard to describe the beauty of this book. There are 1,000 copies, and it's impossible to find one now. They've been sold out for quite some time. Now, this is a very special piece by Delos McGraw from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and it's mostly from the Pool of Tears. There are 21 images that he's painted, and these are kind of trial runs of things that he was painting when he was making a decision on producing his book. So I'm going to show you a few of these. This is Alice, the rabbit. It's very thick. You can see that it's hand painted. Very lovely. You might even recognize, this is almost what the front cover of the Alice's Adventures in Wonderland looks like. So we purchased this at a surprise auction. I call it a surprise because we didn't know that it was going to be on sale, and it happened just to be at the auction, and no one else was there. So we were able to get it, and we're really happy. So this is some of the Pool of Tears pieces with very dark blue, gorgeous coloration. And as I said before, the Lost Graf really thinks that the color and the content are very important for him as an artist to the piece. So I hope you have an opportunity actually to explore this yourself, because it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. Full of tears. Okay. This is my next to the last piece, and it's a book called The Hunting of the Snark. And I bought it because it's beautiful. So when we purchase things, we purchase it because it has value. It's a book that might be important in terms of just having a complete collection. But I did this one because I think that the color, it's woodcuts, and those are unusual, and the texture of the paper is beautiful, and so is the typography. So I like the art books a lot, and I like the feel and the look of the illustrations in the book. My husband actually liked the text more. But this is what I was saying before, is the reading of it gives you a different perspective on how you see the book or see the story. So this is beautiful illustrations by a woodcut. Okay. And the same thing is true for my last book, which I love. And this is a Russian illustrator, and I don't read Russian, so obviously I can't read his name, but the illustrations are stunning. Again, they're a little Stedmanly looking. This particular book has both stories, Alice's Adventures and Through the Looking Glass. And let me get, of course, I say it has 1 million illustrations, but they're very unusual characters, beautiful color. Alice sitting in a chair reading the book. Oops. Sorry, no pictures there. Okay. One of the queens.
There we go.
And so again, the artistic work is beautiful and stunning and different, but the texture of the cover and the feel of the book is great, and the smell of the book, I can actually smell the book, and just the spine, the way the spine is made, and the covers are just exceptional. So that's why I really like this book. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that look at the Cassady home and the very special items that are housed there. Why don't we bring Linda and Mark back right now for some Q&A. We have some great questions in the Q&A feature here, and I also have some of my own.
Can I share screen for just 1 second?
Sure.
Thank you. Share. We couldn't see that Lewis Carroll anamorphic art very well, but it's a technique that was from the Renaissance. And now you can, I think that's a better, now you can see it clearly, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that looks great.
Okay, thank you.
Wow. Oh, you can leave it up for a minute. Oh,
Oh, all right.
in case people want to, zoom in on their screens and explore it, you can keep it up while we talk for a few minutes here.
All right, what the heck?
What the heck? So thank you both for showing us your personal space. It's just amazing. I think there's a lot of jealous people out there right now.
Well, I don't like to think of it as, a contest. It's more, I like to think of it as encouraging. I mean, as you saw, we started with one book, as everybody does. And, once you get 3 or 4, you realize you're a collector. And then, all it takes is time and love, and it grows, So I want to encourage all of you who have like one shelf of Alice, hey, keep going. Someday it'll look like this.
Well, actually, this leads into one of our questions from Curiously Alice. Any tips on new collectors on where to look for books and other things? Any hot tips other than the usual suspects kind of thing?
Well, the usual suspects are great, and the Night Letter and my blog of 9 New Illustrators, which I'll do another one soon. Instagram, which I don't belong to, there's a whole series of collectors there who scour the world and find these amazingly obscure books with gorgeous illustrations. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think at the top of that list, I would probably put Semper Luxus, your friend Mark. So Ella, I think you probably already follow her on Instagram, but yeah, definitely she finds some hidden gems for sure. Right. Linda, how about you? Any tips in general?
Well, yeah, my tip is they're never less expensive than when they come out. So I love Mark's list, quite frankly, and George hated it because I would always say I would get books. Now, the problem with that for me is many of them are European, and it's really difficult sometimes to get like the Spanish ones. The French ones you can get, but I find ordering those just like off of Amazon is hard for me. But, I like the new ones. There's some very great new artists that are out there, and it's a nice way to start, I think. You have to buy one to start, to Mark's point.
Good tip. We have a few people actually are wondering if Mark has a catalog. In fact, an anonymous attendee in the Q&A is asking how your cataloging is going on.
Yes, we started a database back when my dad was around. It's complete for the books. About 15 years ago, it crashed as far as the non-book items. So I have not been doing that, sadly, but at least all my books are cataloged. It's pretty primitive. It's just, name, publisher, year, illustrator, stuff like that. Not anything as elegant as the Cassadys, but it serves at least to tell me what I do and don't have.
Yeah, and I have to say that Mark, when we were starting ours or working on it, Mark graciously allowed us to have a copy of his. And so it's a nice group of people who share information. So you get corrections on stuff that you've written or you thought was correct. Other people may have different information. So it's really great to share that. So
yeah, I regard this as a research library. I'm not one of those white glove collectors that, you can't look at a book or handle it. So if any of you have research you need, the room is open.
People might take you up on that.
I hope so.
Now, speaking of sharing, Linda, I will not name names, but you mentioned when I was at your place that when you saw an item, you really, really wanted it, but you still called someone else who you knew might want it just as much or a little bit more. Does that happen often in this community?
To bid your friend up. So so people attend a lot of online auctions because that's a good source actually. And so if you want something really badly, or there's something that's going to complete your collection or contribute to it, it's not uncommon for us to call someone that we know and say, are you going to bid on this? So our goal is not to bid over anyone that we know or is collecting, but to, you know, if we were just doing it because we thought it was a nice book, that's really not the best reason to go buy a book or to challenge someone. But if you know that someone has a particular line of interest, it's nice to see, you know, what's happening in there, and then make a decision. They can decide to either bid or not bid, but they would know if you were interested in it. So we do have a group that kind of does that.
Mark, anything to add to that?
No, I'm sorry, I was doing something else.
Oh, quite all right. I love this question because it's always the first one on my mind. How often do you dust/clean your collections?
I think maybe it's been done once. I don't care about dust. You know, if it's not mildew or something like that, dust can be blown off.
Linda?
We handle the ones at home fairly frequently, and so I think they kind of quote get their dusting then. And the ones at the university, I suspect are not, like, they don't have a housekeeper that comes in and dusts them all. So we do another set. We have another set that we used to actually polish every year, but not on the Alice side, on the Alice collection.
And very specific question, I believe, for Mark from Diane Wagner. Is that a Julia Margaret Cameron of Alice on the Wall or a reproduction?
It is the original. I also have the Carroll photo of Exie is also original. Or I guess, oh, and I haven't shown you that, but.
Yeah, I didn't show mine either because that was a real treasure.
Yeah.
Diane,
Well, give me another hour or two and I'll show you everything. But yes, that's a Julia Margaret Cameron.
Diane was a speaker at one of our meetings, and we were lusting. We figured that we would like at least one photograph just to have that in the collection. We felt like that was like something important to us, but we just couldn't find one that was affordable for us. And then at some point that Exie came up, and we were thrilled that we were able to do that. So I didn't show it but it is one of our favorite pieces to have, you know, a photograph from Carroll.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I have to imagine the answer is I don't know from both of you, but Dieter is wondering, do either of you know what your collection is worth? And you don't have to share that number if you do have a ballpark figure, but do you have any idea at all what you have spent over the years?
Yeah, but.
All right.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Yeah, and we do. I think we have.
He can, if he wants to email me, we could chat about it, but.
All right.
I don't really feel comfortable.
Oh, no, I said, no, please don't share the. I was just wondering if you actually knew, or like if at the beginning you didn't keep track maybe of, you know, what you bought.
Yeah.
Because we give it to the university, it has to be formally appraised by a certified appraiser. So for all of the books that are already at USC, we've had formal appraisals done. They are not inexpensive appraisals because it's like stunning. But so that's why we have a fairly good idea.
Yeah, we had it appraised when my father gifted it to me, but that was 26 years ago. So it doesn't really mean anything.
Right. So it's just at that moment.
Right.
Oh, Cheryl is wondering, Linda, how does one access the Cassady collection if they're just a stranger off the street or an LCSNA member?
So if you were a stranger off the street, you would still need to make an appointment. So it used to, before COVID, you could just walk in there and pretty much get something within an hour. Now you are very wise to make an appointment. In fact, you have to have an appointment to take a seat in the university. Now it's even tighter because of all the kind of the wars and things that are going on. So, but you can go in, anyone can go in. You just have to I would call the library and say, I'm interested in seeing the Carroll collection. They would tell you how to do that, but it's not as easy now as it was like 3 years ago, when you just kind of walked in and said, hi, can I see the Cassady collection? And then they would sit you down and bring the book. So it takes some planning now.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it the first time I went, and I was allowed to, the one room was just not open, like they knew I was there, but you know, you could just open the cabinet and take out whatever you wanted. It was amazing.
Yeah, you could, you know, just they unlocked them in the morning because we were doing a lot of work periodically as well. And they just unlocked them in the morning and locked them at 5. So they were available. There's someone in the room, there are cameras in the room. So they're being well monitored, but you could just go in.
Yeah, what a time. So I see a lot of people with very similar questions, both in the chat and the Q&A. By the way, I don't look at the chat very much because things get buried, but I see a lot of people asking basically about the one that got away, the one you really, either you've never found it, or maybe you were outbid, or maybe you just decided not to get it and later regret it. And either of you have a one that got away kind of story?
A few. On the high end, I was at a book fair and saw an edition that had one of a kind, had been made for, I believe, John Tenniel's nephew, hand calligraphed, and every illustration was an oil painting. It sold for over $1 million several years ago. I would not decide to bargain for it. So I just sort of think of that ideal. The other day I saw an amazing edition, which I will not reveal because I'm one of those collectors. Any more details except that it was hysterically funny with Shirley Temple as Alice, and all the characters were movie stars. But that's all I can say at this point, because I am desperately searching for a copy.
Need to know basis. All right. Linda, how about you?
I know that there have been several that have gotten away. I'm trying to think of which one it is. Mostly there's always another Alice book is what we try to say or believe. And I don't know where they come from. What people are concerned about is, well, how do I get started? Haven't all of the books been, taken or bought or in someone's collection? And it's surprising. I don't know where stuff comes from, but there is just so many interesting pieces. Some of the real rare ones, like the 1865 books and stuff, are still available, and they're expensive, but you can find them, and you have to decide what's the key pin to your collection, and what's your vision for what you are looking for. That's a good place to start, really, is to decide what you want. And so we decided we would not ever compete against like Princeton or the University of Texas. That was during the time where we said we just couldn't get any photographs, because there's no reason for us to try to get a big photograph group, because other people already have a really wonderful collection of that. So we also look at rarity for our standpoint, and then what's usable. So that's a terrible answer. So sorry.
I don't think that's a terrible answer.
Like what?
So I'm going to ask just one or two more questions, and we're going to wrap this up. I did want to let everyone know, I just put it in the chat, we are having a social hour immediately following the presentation. And if you've added something special to your collection recently, we'd love to see it then. Social hour is a great place to share that. And also Mark and Linda will be joining us, I believe, at least for a while. And so you can follow up with some live Q&A there. So what I just put in the chat was the email blast that went out this morning that contains the social hour link towards the bottom there. We have a few people wondering just tips for when you're first starting out, how to start cataloging. Basically just, a few different people asking that, like the different types of media. Like, I mean, do you just start on Excel and just make sure you're keeping track, or is there a program or a process you would recommend from the very beginning?
There are database programs. There's also, depends of things like, do you want to keep images of the covers of books, images of the spines, which was great because, for example, if I try to go find a book among my 4,000 and I really don't know anything, I know the publisher or something, what does the spine look like? There are lots of cataloging, library cataloging and other programs. I see someone just said Library Cat, that are either in the cloud or you can download. It sort of depends on how far you want to go, how much information you want to keep. It can be anything from an Excel or Word table to these very nice programs where you can upload pictures and all that. So there's a lot out there.
We chose to do the lowest common denominator, which is Excel, because it is tradable with somebody else. And it also can be ran through like the easy catalog thing that I was talking about. So I had a guy help set it up. So all I have to do is type the name of an image in a cell, and I tell it that I want it to be 3 by 5 centimeters. We give it some information, and when it comes in, it just picks it out of bucket. So there's a folder with all of the images in it, and it automatically loads it and resizes it. So it doesn't matter what size George took the picture at, which is a problem because you have to have ratios and things that are known. So that's what we did. I find it a little hard to read. So if it didn't have easy catalog, to me, reading, 28 Excel spreadsheets, it is hard, but all the information is there. But it does give you the opportunity actually probably to import it in some other way. So, I would start with the basics, get and the images. We do take the spine, the title page, and the covers. And
Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
No, mine's actually in something called Access, and I don't have any pictures. The nice thing is, of course, you can make queries and, give me a list of all Russian books from 1914 to 1922 or whatever than that. It's exportable to Excel, Word, whatever you want. On the other hand, I was a database programmer, so it's kind of easy for me. So that's just one possibility.
There's your answer. Be a database programmer. That's how you start cataloging. Yes. So everyone, I see there's still some more questions there, but we've exceeded 90 minutes here. So we're going to go ahead and adjourn to social hour momentarily. So if you do have follow-up questions, please come along there. And also I'm going to end with Karen Mortolero in the Q&A just has a nice comment. Thank you to all those who have the passion and to collect and share their efforts, which in this case means you two, Linda and Mark. Thank you so much for showing us the Burstein collection and the Cassady collection. Such a treat for everybody here. And we will see you next month, everyone, for our theater event. I believe it's July 28th. You get to hear from the writer and director of a new Alice in Wonderland musical. Actually, I misspoke. It's Alice, formerly of Wonderland. It's about the real Alice's possible real-life romance with Prince Leopold. Which was really fun. It was in Santa Barbara recently. And then just a reminder, we are having our 50th anniversary Jubilee in Boston right after Halloween. I believe November 1st through 3rd. And please go ahead and register for that because we would love to see you in person. These being in a box here is nice, but in person can be even better. So thank you so much to everyone who attended, and thank you, Mark and Linda. And we will see everybody hopefully at Social Hour momentarily. Bye-bye.